I bet you didn't know the dark secret lurking in the heart of Bridgeport. In the shadowed alleys and dimly lit streets of Bridgeport, a new power was emerging. It wasn't a politician or a businessman, but a man whose empire was built on a white powder, cocaine. This is the story of how one man rose from obscurity to become the undisputed king of a city held hostage by addiction and violence. His name was whispered in fear and reverence. He was a ghost, a phantom in the night, orchestrating a network so intricate that even the most seasoned investigators were left bewildered. Before he was known as the Cocaine King of Bridgeport, he was simply a man with ambition, cunning, and a ruthless drive to control the underworld. As the city's lights flickered, so did the lives of those who dared to cross him. The rise of this king was not just a tale of drugs and power, but a reflection of a city teetering on the edge of chaos. Join us as we unravel the dark tale of the Cocaine King of Bridgeport, starting from his humble beginnings to his ruthless reign over a city ensnared by his influence. This is the story of how one man's quest for power became Bridgeport's worst nightmare. As Bridgeport's underworld grew darker, the city above began to feel the weight of its hidden ruler. The streets were no longer just pathways but became veins through which fear and addiction flowed. Families found themselves torn apart, neighborhoods transformed into battlegrounds, and everyday life was overshadowed by an invisible enemy. In the shadows, the Cocaine King watched his empire expand. He thrived on the chaos, his influence stretching like a dark cloud over Bridgeport. The city was caught in a vicious cycle of dependency and fear, each day a struggle for survival. But amidst the despair, there were those who refused to be held hostage. Community leaders, local law enforcement, and everyday citizens began to push back, determined to reclaim their city from the grip of the Cocaine King. Their resilience became a beacon of hope in an otherwise bleak landscape. In the heart of darkness, a glimmer of hope remains. Bridgeport fights back. The battle for Bridgeport was far from over, and as the city braced for the storm ahead, the true cost of the Cocaine King's reign was only just beginning to reveal itself. Bridgeport, once a thriving industrial center, was now in decline. Factories closed, jobs disappeared, drugs filled the void. Estrada's network spread, he controlled the supply, dictated the terms, dealers answered to him, addicts were his customers. A vicious cycle of addiction and violence took hold. The city's streets became a war zone, turf wars erupted, innocent bystanders caught in the crossfire, fear permeated every corner. Bridgeport was under siege. Estrada ruled with an iron fist. Violence was his tool, intimidation his method. Dissent was not tolerated. Traitors were punished brutally. His enforcers roamed the streets, armed and dangerous. They carried out his orders, beatings, shootings, murders. No one was beyond his reach. The police seemed powerless to stop him. Witnesses were too afraid to talk. Estrada had infiltrated the system. Corruption ran deep. The walls close in. For years, Estrada operated with impunity. He believed he was untouchable. But the feds were watching, building their case, gathering evidence. In 2000, the hammer fell, a massive raid on Estrada's operation. Hundreds of agents stormed the projects, arrests were made, drugs and weapons seized. Estrada was finally captured, charged with conspiracy and racketeering, facing a mountain of evidence. His reign of terror was over. The Soul Connection. One name haunted the Estrada case, Bobby Soul. A young man caught in the crossfire, a crime that shocked the city, a symbol of Estrada's brutality. Soul was an innocent bystander. In the wrong place at the wrong time, mistaken for a rival dealer, gunned down in cold blood, a life cut short. Estrada's lieutenant was convicted of the murder, sentenced to life in prison. Estrada himself was linked to the crime. His sentence, life without parole. Scars on the city. Frankie Estrada's empire crumbled, but the damage was done. Bridgeport bore the scars of his reign, a generation lost to drugs and violence. The city struggled to rebuild, to heal the wounds, to restore hope. But the memory of the Terminator lingered, a reminder of a dark chapter. Estrada's story is a cautionary tale about the seductive power of greed, the corrosive effects of drugs, and the enduring human cost of violence. Join us in spreading awareness. Subscribe and share to support Bridgeport's recovery.